Well, I am an admirer of Elisa's. Elisa has even worked for me, and the fact is that she is talented.
What's it called? Kermit and Friends?
Kermit and Friends.
Kermit.
But if Kermit,
You're saying
like
not to
frog?
do.
Yeah,
Wait.
I actually have watched a few hours of Kermit and Friends.
How many hours have you watched, Natalie?
Oh, no. Probably indulged in 8 hours.
Holy.
My wife and I watched Benji's ex-girlfriends or whatever's going on. We watched this crazy podcast, and I have to say, this is one of the, probably in the top 5 things I think about right now.
She has a podcast, but she gets to come on the radio. It is craziness upon craziness.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Kermit and Friends. I am Elisa. This is Fozzie, and Kermit is watching from heaven. We have such an exciting show today. If you told me last year at this time that I'd be engaged to Andy Dick and interviewing the chief of police, I would say, you've got to be kidding me. I'd say, I don't believe that. But look what's happening here. You just never know where life will take you. That's the beautiful thing about life. That's what I love the most about life out of anything is the position you're in right now. Trust me, the position you're in right now, if you're unhappy with it, if you want more, you can get it. You just have to have the intention. Okay. You have to have intention. You have to have consciousness. Coach Love has come into my life and she turned me on to a lot of different things. She's the one that booked our guest for today. And she showed me these beautiful videos, these religious videos that I've been watching. And I tell you, when somebody comes into my life, there really is a reason. And I feel like it's all for a bigger purpose, right? So we're here to spread joy. Okay, there's a couple of reasons why we're here. I'm going to just bring on my co-host real quickly, Sugar. Sugar, welcome to Kermit and Friends. You look beautiful. I love your outfit.
Good morning. Thank you. In honor of our lovely guest today. Coach Love is amazing. I think she needs to be a reverend.
That's a great idea. It's a great idea, Sugar.
Yeah, let's make her a reverend.
So a half hour
standard issue. Let's ask the cop if this is standard issue. Like we need to change the look of cops so they're kind of more cool.
I mean, you do look cool. So a half hour ago, I was thinking, if anybody in my life would have a cop uniform, it would be Sugar. And I was right.
Hey, man, sometimes you got to be the sheriff. Sometimes things go down in my little upscale suburban neighborhood. And I have to, get serious.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just bring on Coach Love real fast. I want you to help us introduce our guest.
There I am.
There you are. Okay, so
good morning, Coach Love. Thank you so much for giving us such an amazing guest.
My pleasure. I love the welcome. You look tough, sexy, and hot.
See, right? I think this would solve a lot of problems that we have today. You know, if we could just sort of get some alternative uniforms for some of the cops.
Yeah, there you go. Somehow I think you should be saying Mr. Officer, Mr. Officer.
Okay, everybody calm down. Everybody calm down. Sugar's distracting everybody with that sexy look. So Coach Love, this guest is somebody that you found. How did you run into the chief of police, Chief William Blair Anderson? How did you run into this guy?
Well, he hung out with me the other day on my show, Epic Understanding. But you know what? God just has a great way of attracting and bringing me good people in my life that are smart and who have a passion for helping the community. And I'm going to tell you, this guy has a passion for helping the community. And I told him he needs to go to Washington because he has the right mindset to not make it political, but make it about people. And the solutions that he's brought to St. Cloud, Minnesota, really needs to be enacted all over the United States. It's amazing.
Well, Coach, I've been reading a lot about him, and people are giving him credit for actually fixing St. Cloud. Have you read that?
Yes. And you want to know what I like about, he's going to do this. He's going to say, my team, right? And it is true. It is true, but they're getting their direction from him, and he's really focused on hiring quality people with the right attitude. As a matter of fact, ask him his screening test for hiring good people. It's so simple, but so poignant, powerful, and amazing.
Okay, great. So I'm going to ask him that question. I heard there's a 3-point screening process that he has that I found absolutely fascinating. Let's bring him on. This is Chief of Police William Blair Anderson. William Blair Anderson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. I was so thrilled when, our coach, our wonderful coach, she's so kind. She pointed me in your direction. I started looking you up, and you have so many interests. You're really out there as a police chief. I mean, you're on Fox News, you're on CNN, you're on Kermit and Friends, you're everywhere. People really recognize you. You had a TED Talk about kindness. And while really thinking about you and, where it all stems from, it seems like you were actually one of the few people I've met that have been raised well. Do you think that's where it all comes from? Were you raised in a happy household?
100%. That is the alpha and the omega. I'm from the hood, grew up in Detroit in one of the most violent precincts in the city, but I was more afraid of my parents than I was the guys on the street causing mayhem and mischief. So you are spot on. It started at home, and when you know better, you do better. And I'm old enough to have been raised by folks who you are supposed to know because you've been taught. And when you don't do what you're supposed to, there's a consequence.
So were your parents extremely strict with you? You said you were scared of them. How did they raise you? Was there a lot of fear that you had as a child?
No, I don't mean scared as in fear. I mean scared as in disappointing them, because all of the right things were instilled in us. And so when you didn't do what you were supposed to, there was a consequence. And I would much rather have faced anybody else other than my mother. She was about 4'9", and we called her the enforcer. And she didn't like to repeat herself. And with 7 kids in the house, you can imagine she wanted order, period. And so, it was just a fear of disappointing them and letting them down. And I carry them with me all the time, with a whole bunch of other people, too, that I owe. I owe people who sacrificed more than I ever had to so that I could reach my full potential. So that's how I'm trying to pay that back.
Well, you mentioned in some of your interviews that it takes a village to really raise a child. Besides your parents, who stands out to you throughout your childhood as helping you succeed?
Oh man, the extended family, both my parents have 6 siblings. I have 6 siblings. So cousins, uncles, coaches, teachers, police officers, school resource officers, just people in the neighborhood. You know, I grew up in one of those neighborhoods that was a gauntlet. Even though there was chaos all around, you know, if Mrs. Johnson caught you doing something, they were an extension of your parents. And so they would get after you, and then they would tell your parents before you got home. And so double jeopardy didn't exist at our house. So a whole bunch of people put their hands on me. And of course, the Lord just has blessed me each and every day. So there are a whole bunch of folks, too many to mention.
Okay. That's so nice to hear that you had, a happy upbringing. It seems like a lot of people were helpful in creating the man that we see today. You have such an interesting backstory. I read that there was an event that happened to you, and I was wondering if this event contributed to what you do. In 1994, your home was firebombed. Can you just bring us through what happened there?
Yeah, there was, and the ironic part is I spent 8 years in the military and I lived all over the southern United States, but it wasn't until I came back here to Minnesota in the 90s that my house was firebombed because I had the temerity to be married to a white woman and have mixed race babies. And there were a whole bunch of things that led up to that. There were neo-Nazis protesting in the streets and flying their flags and their swastikas. It got so bad I took to cutting my lawn with a pistol in my waistband, and I was not in law enforcement at the time. And
so that was before. Was that when you were playing basketball? Because I know you were chasing that career too.
Yeah, I was chasing my hoop dreams, but by then it had faded. I got as close to the NBA as my sofa, but I was working as a news reporter at the time, ironically. And these guys just propped up from I don't know where. But the coolest part about it is I clearly, after that happened, I was going to move. I didn't want to have to harm somebody, and I certainly didn't want my family to be harmed. But we had such an outpouring of support. There were a lot of World War II veterans that lived in this city, in this neighborhood where I was. And you can imagine their response to, Nazis or neo-Nazis or white supremacists. And the outpouring was so fantastic that we stayed.
Wow. So when that happened, that must have been so frightening. Did you have a gun before then? Did you get a gun, after that happened? Or were you always kind of worried because of the neighborhood?
No, the neighborhood was fine, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yep, I did have a gun. In fact, those clowns who came in and did all that mess weren't even from there. They didn't even live there. Another irony. But no, I wasn't ever fearful like that. Certainly, something like that will shake you up because I had my precious cargo with me, my two sons.
Yeah.
They were 7 and 6 months old, and so that pissed me off because you're trying to kill me and you're trying to kill my babies, and we're not going to stand for that. And so there wasn't any fear because it's ignorance is what it is. And so I took it for what it was. And I was grateful and very prayerful that no harm came to anybody.
Yeah, thank God. And how do you feel about just, regular citizens carrying? Do you feel that everybody should carry a gun?
Well, I can tell you I've come around on that one. I remember when we first enacted our permit to carry law here, I was in law enforcement then, and I was a little bit apprehensive about what that was going to mean. But certainly over time, we know that, law-abiding citizens who go through the process to, get a legal permit to carry are probably not the ones we should be worrying about. And so we know that bad folks out there are going to find a way to get a gun anyway. And so I'm certainly a proponent of people being able to protect themselves. I'm not a gun nut. But I don't, I guess I don't find it offensive or an affront that somebody wants to exercise their legal right.
Okay. And let's see, are you open to taking fan questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go Wow, we got a lot of people that want to talk to you. Do you have a lot of fans? I'm just curious about this. Like, you're so big in the news and you're everywhere. You're on TV. You're doing TED Talks. Are people like fans of you? Do you have fanatics?
No, I don't think so. And if I did, I wouldn't notice, because I'm still just a regular guy, from the D. And I will never forget where I came from. I will never forget everything that I've been through. And most importantly, I will never lose my empathy for others who are on the grind, right? Everybody's going through something at some point in their lives. And so those are the things that kind of drive me. And I know that we have a lot of power, right, as a police officer in a free society. And so I tell my staff that should be treated with reverence. It should not be abused. And that's why I hire the people that have that kind of temperament. So sorry, I went a little bit far afield, but fans, I don't know if I have fans.
Well, you're going to make some here. That's for sure. People are already asking. So. People are asking me, is Chief single? A lot of people are asking that.
I am not.
Okay, he's not. He's taken, guys. Guys and girls, back off. Okay, he's taken. Okay, and then another question is, do you have any nasty trolls, like trolls that are trolling you? I know you had a problem on social media before where they put out a story that wasn't even true. Do you get trolled? Can you explain that story and just tell us, how that works for you?
Yeah, and for me personally, believe it or not, you guys, hold on to your chairs. I'm not on social media, and so I know I'm going to have to make that transition at some point. But the story that you're referencing had to do with one of my officers being shot. And of course, this was last summer after all of the mayhem and nonsense in Minneapolis after George Floyd was killed. But one of my officers was shot by a young man of color. And within seconds, literally, somebody had put out on Facebook Live that St. Cloud PD had shot 2 young Black kids in the head, and one was dead and one was clinging to life. And so it kind of spun up a whole bunch of angst and anger, and folks came down and they were trying to storm the police department, but we held them at bay, because you don't get my house. You're not getting the house.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so when I was reading about that, I was imagining how frustrating that was, that people can just say anything in the news, anything that they come up with, just their opinion. And then all of a sudden it's fact, and it can be a completely made up story in the news or on social media, which people take as news. So sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between something that I just post, and then they say, oh, according to this, and then all of a sudden it's real. And then people are coming after you. It's just so frustrating. So I'm sure that is a really bad, that's a negative side of this, right?
Yeah. And not only is it frustrating, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous, because those people came down to the PD and they had bad intentions. I'm not going to even sugarcoat it. They weren't coming to talk. And so that's probably the most frustrating part for me, is that, man, check your information, right? Before you start reacting. I like to tell my officers, I like to tell young people I talk to, respond, don't react. And the difference is, all it takes is a second for you to think about what you're going to do or what you're going to say. And that's a response, right? It's not a reaction. That's a little more impetuous. And that's what gets people into trouble, I think.
And when is the most scared you've ever been in your job? When were you, just afraid for your life?
Well, I was wrestling with a drunken bricklayer in the dead of winter on a state highway at about 3 a.m. with nobody else around. And this guy was as strong as 10 people. Imagine, he was a laborer. The only other time was really when I made a traffic stop. It was about 3, 4 in the morning. Simple, guy's taillight was out. But he was a boxer. He was a Golden Gloves boxer, and he wasn't real fond of police. And it came to a point where we were kind of doing the circle dance, like we were in a boxing ring. And I only knew he was a boxer because when I looked in the back seat, I saw his Golden Gloves jacket. And I could see that the tensions were heightening, right? He was getting a little bit more and more agitated. And I thought, this dude is going to try to knock me out. I know it. I
Oh
know.
God, yeah, that is not something you want to see in somebody's car doing that.
Yeah, no. And so we talked, and I explained to him, I only stopped you because your taillight was out. You probably didn't know. And the cool part about that story is after we did the circle dance, before he left, because I didn't cite him for it, he was on his way back to Iowa. No big deal, not the crime of the century. And one of the things he said to me was, man, I've never met a police officer like you that's talked to me like you've talked to me. And so thank you. And so those are the things that mean most to me. But yeah, that night, yeah, I was at DEFCON 1 that night.
How are you able to do that while dealing with someone like that? How can you, so you don't let your emotions get involved? That's what it sounds like to me.
No, I mean, you can't. You know, you have to deal with what you're confronted with, right? We deal with behavior. I don't care what somebody looks like or how much money they have or what their zip code is or any of that stuff. I'm going to take you how you come to me. Now, you know, at the end of the day, and I'm not saying this because I'm some kind of tough guy, but you know, if you need to go downtown, if you need to go to jail, you're going. And so people have a lot more control over that than the public gives them credit for. So, you know, my mindset was always, how do you want to do this? But you're going. And so we can do this the good way, the nice way, or we can do this the hard way. And so I've been fortunate that I've been able to de-escalate more folks than I've escalated. And that just, you know, I use this. I use the verbal judo.
And do you think you're just a good conversationalist with these people? Or do you think you're restrained? Like, what is it about you that, you know, you're so great at this?
Well, thank you for the kind words. I just try to take people as they come to me. I try and understand that who knows what they're going through right now. And now some clown like me has pulled them over at 3 a.m. and they were just going about their way. And I get it, right? That we make people nervous. We just do. I understand that, and I will never forget it. And so I try and temper my emotions and deal with people where I find them. I've made so many traffic stops where I mean, minor stuff. And when I get up to the car, people are trembling with fear. People are crying. And I just remind them, I'm like, listen, no harm's going to come to you on my watch. I got your back. But here's why I stopped you. Again, you might not have known your tail light was out, or you might have been going a little too fast. It's not the crime of the century. You're not going to go to jail unless you got dead bodies in the trunk. Otherwise, you'll be on your way here in a minute. And it just kind of calms people down, because that's what we want. We want people to be calm.
But it's so hard to be calm in that situation. It really is. There's so much emotions that go through you when you're, you know, being stopped. I know personally that, and it is like frightening for some reason. It really is. So, I mean, I guess you're just telling people, if people are out there and they're listening, I mean, you want to bump into this guy. Obviously, you're one of the very good ones, I would say. You know, not everybody's like that. There are some bad eggs, you know. Oh,
unfortunately, yes. We take our personnel from the human race, and there are, you know, there are some folks in this profession who are only doing it because they got their ass kicked in the schoolyard. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Here's the news. The vast majority, and I always say this, no matter whom I'm speaking with, the vast majority of police officers are doing the job the right way for the right reason. When I say the vast, I mean 99.something%. And after 26 years in this profession, I feel I'm qualified to say that. And I don't want us to forget them, because there are a lot of great men and women out here serving for the right reasons.
Yeah, when I listen to you speak about why you do it, you know, the reason that you do it, it's just to help people and kindness. You even did a TED Talk on kindness that I loved. And I really try to incorporate that in my life. I think, you know, how can I create a world around me where everybody is kind and helpful towards each other? You know, in your TED Talk, you kind of talk about that. And do you think there's a lack of kindness that you see in the world right now?
Oh, most definitely. Are you kidding? And civility. We're just not nice enough to each other anymore. And sadly, we all know there are far more people who are kind in this world that are not. But for whatever reason, we are just not being nice to each other right now. And
why though? Why?
I don't know. I mean, I have my theories, you know, poor upbringing. People are pissed off about stuff. I just had a spirited debate the other day with a young man who is okay with what they call the quote unquote protests. And my issue is, if you're mad at somebody else who did something to you, but you come and burn down my house, how is that helpful? I just can't wrap my mind around the way people think. So I always go back to poor upbringing. Let's start there. Where the hell are your parents? Because do you remember the lady a few years ago that saw her kid protesting? I think it was in Philadelphia, throwing rocks at the police, and she went out there and went upside his head. It was the coolest thing I've ever, and I mean, she snatched him by his backpack and drug him home. And when they interviewed her later, she goes, yeah, no, he knows better. So I don't know what he thought he was doing out here. See, that's good parenting to me.
Yeah, so but not everybody's so lucky, right? We can't really choose our parents.
Right.
So if somebody, you know, has a bad upbringing, maybe their parents, you know, you're only as good as you can be. Maybe these parents, they try to be good, but they aren't for whatever reason, lack of tools or whatever. Maybe they had bad parents. In that kind of situation, that's when it's really tough, because sometimes people, they do not want to be helped. And those people are the toughest people to deal with, right? Right, Chief?
Understood, 100%. But here's the thing. We've gotten away from the whole empathy part and understanding that no matter what you're going through, somebody else has it worse. We've gotten away from using your energy, whether it's negative energy or angst or whatever it is. Use that to make the situation better, right? And I believe it was the great Booker T. Washington who said, you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else. And I hope I got that right. It was either him or Frederick Douglass.
That's a great one. That's a great. If you help someone, you're really helping yourself too. It comes back to you.
It's the greatest thing ever. You know, I ask my staff on a regular basis, especially, and they're human beings, and sometimes, you know, they're having a bad day. And so I ask them, did you help somebody today? And if the answer is no, my response is, well, that's why you're having a crappy day. You haven't helped anybody today, all day long. I mean, come on. There's so many opportunities for us, no matter where we go, what we do, to help somebody. It doesn't have to be something extraordinary. Sometimes just a smile and a kind word would be the only one that person you just crossed paths with will get that day, that week, that month. And that matters to people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's take our first question. This is Sigmund. Sigmund, you're on with Chief William Blair Anderson.
Oh, wow. Where should I start? Okay, I guess there's the serious side of it all, which we're going to have to talk about, like the riots and how do you deal with that? You know, and a lot of it's stoked by the media. Okay, that's not a question. But I do have a question on the lighter side. Might as well just get right to that. And that is, like, you made a comment in one of your videos that you'll never be seen eating a pastry in uniform. And does that apply to everyone in your department? Do you tell them do not eat donuts? And the other half of that is, like, there's a restaurant called Palermo's here in my neighborhood. It's like this fine old-fashioned Italian restaurant. There'll be like 4, 8, or 12 policemen in uniform eating their lunch there. That's okay, right? I mean, how do you feel about how much eating can you be doing in public?
It is okay. And I'm going to start my answer by correcting you, because actually what I said, if you're referring to my TED Talk, is that I am not ashamed to eat pastry. And
I heard that too.
Uniform. So
I heard that. He said 100%. He would. Yeah. Do some cops, are they afraid to eat a donut, or do you know a lot of cops that are afraid of that?
I don't know any who are afraid to eat pastry. I mean, it's synonymous with us. So I'm perfectly fine and comfortable eating pastry in public in uniform. No problem.
Okay, I guess I heard that backwards. Okay, fine.
Sigmund, next question.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we get to the serious thing. I mean, just the big mess last year with these staged riots in Seattle in Portland, and was it the governor and the mayor of Seattle were all for the riots because they were kind of trying to get rid of Trump, but they wanted to go off in that direction. But and they said they're saying, well, it's going to be the summer of love. Riots are the summer of love. What was
not where I come from.
No.
Not where I come from.
They were using that as a euphemism to justify because they wanted to cause civil unrest. The whole thing.
And they did, right? It's not that they wanted to. They did. You talk about what drives me crazy, these occupied zones and these clowns out here who have no idea what they're doing. They're opportunists, in my opinion. You ask any decent law-abiding citizen who lives in or around any of these places, and the last thing they want is for the police to go away. Who wants us to be defunded? The bad guys are leading the charge. I mean, think about it, right? It's not a huge stretch to believe that. And look at the spikes in violent crime we've seen all over America ever since the defund the police mantra has been put forward. And it's just silly. It's stupid. It's irritating. It pisses me off, and I don't like it. If I could be a little more clear, if I need to, I will try, but it's not helpful.
No, I cannot imagine that being helpful in any way. All right, so let's see. That was pretty good. Okay, let's bring on John Bolton. John Bolton, question for the chief.
Yeah, I guess I really didn't have a question. I was just kind of listening. I'm glad that you're a compassionate officer. I've ran across so many throughout my life and the kind of trouble I've been through. What's your feelings on this about the new marijuana legalization and stuff? I guess I'll ask that kind of a question. How do you feel about it? Do you think it's going to drop the crime rate a little bit because now it's legal? You know, less people getting busted for it.
Well, here's what I'll say about that. It's been decriminalized a long time ago. Let's face it. At least in our state, I can only speak for our state. You have to be caught with at least an ounce and a half in our state before there's any serious consequences. Not that they overlook everything else, but I mean, here's the thing. I'm a realist. It's coming. I think there will be some definite challenges that go along with it, specifically for folks in my profession or other public service professions, right? Okay, so it's legal. So you smoke a joint on your rotation off, but it's still in your system, and you come back to work and you get involved in a shooting or some other violent or traumatic event. You know, the first thing they do, right, when we're involved in something like that is they take a vial of blood. And so how's that going to look if, some cop who just got involved in a serious incident, a violent incident or an OIS, an officer involved shootings, got marijuana in his or her system? So it would be incumbent upon us as leaders to write a policy.
What do you prefer, though? Do you prefer people smoking blunts and being high all around?
No, not necessarily. But here's the thing. I can tell you this, real talk. I've never gotten into a violent confrontation with anybody who was high on weed in my career.
Okay, that's something.
I know the quality and the levels have changed over the years, but that's been my experience. I don't know if that would happen now if I worked the streets, but I do know this. Unfortunately, it does lead to other things. It leads to violent crime. It leads to robberies. It leads to shootings. When you start talking about folks who are dealing, it leads to homicides. And so there's some horrible residual effects that come from it. And so as a public safety professional, I can't be on board with that part of it.
Yeah, I take public transit here in LA, and when I go on a bus, I think, I'd rather people not be on drugs, any drugs. I'd rather people not have guns. That's just my preference. If somebody has a gun and I'm on that bus with that person, I get off. I would get off the bus, and so that's just me. I prefer not having those things. I don't know. I just would feel better, but I understand that people love weed and they love getting high. But even so, I feel safer without it. I feel safer with people not on the road smoking weed. I just don't feel safe with that. And I actually prefer it not be legal. I know that's very unpopular, but that's how I feel.
100%. I would prefer it not be legal either. But again, I'm a realist, and it's you know, and I would prefer if people use some other mental gymnastics or other tactics to get through. I mean, let's face it, people who use drugs, and it is a, you know, it's a disease, it's a sickness. But, you know, I told my brother this one time. I'm like, do you know something that's worse than drugs? And he said, what? I'm like, real life. That's why people get high. So they don't want to deal with what's going on in their lives. So that's my philosophy anyway.
Yeah, life is tough. And I do agree with you that's why they do it. If you face your life, that is very difficult. I mean, you seem to have a good life. Is anything bothering you at all?
No, other than these clowns out here in the street defund the police and tearing up businesses that somebody else has spent 30 or 40 years to build, people who are employ other people. Yeah, no, fewer things irritate me more than that. But, you know, here's the thing. I'm happy every morning when I wake up because the Lord has given me another day to try and be better than I was the day before. And so I try not to let them steal my joy dust. It doesn't work all the time or every day, but for the most part, nope, I'm good. I have no complaints, none whatsoever.
Okay, great. We have an amazing caller right now. This is my friend Michelle. Michelle, introduce yourself to the chief, okay? Kermit and Friends.
Hi, Chief. Thank you so much for your service and everything. Wow, what an honor. What an honor. I work in a state prison. The case that has been setting my heart, I mean, ever since it's been on the news is the Brianna Taylor case. Yeah, I work in a state prison. You know, use of force is, of course, always and will be, you know, the main thing. What is your thoughts on the Brianna Taylor case?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tough one. And let me start by saying that I ran a county jail for 5 years. So I was a jail commander, and I also served on the SWAT team for 5 years plus. I was in the military for 8 years. So here's the thing, and I'm not trying to be evasive. I still don't know if I know enough about everything that happened to render an opinion. But I can tell you this, based on what I do know, is that those officers were shot at and they were returning fire. So my question would be, what do you want us to do? And again, I don't have enough information. If there were some things that they botched or whatever, it hasn't come out. But the attorney general in that state didn't find any fault with their tactics. Now, the result is horrible. I feel awful for the Taylor family. There was no reason why she should have lost her life that day. And so if I appear to be diplomatic on this, I'm doing it on purpose because I don't like to render opinions or talk too much about things that I'm not informed enough about. So
listen, you're way too nice of a guy to ever be canceled, so don't worry about that. Do not worry. You are not in danger of that. Okay.
But let me add this real quick. Having been in that situation a gazillion times, being that point person, going in first, knowing there's danger. Here's what the general public needs to know. The standard to get a no-knock warrant is very high. It's very high. And we use a matrix where we score based on all kinds of stuff. I won't bore you guys with all that stuff. But by the time we've obtained one, we've convinced the judge who's going to sign that warrant that there's some danger on the other side of that door, which is why we're going to have to kick it in. And unfortunately, if we start banning those kinds of things and taking those kinds of tools away, we're going to drive good people out of the profession. Who the hell want to go in there where you know there's guns? What do drug dealers protect their empire with? Guns.
Right.
So don't handcuff us and take away the tools that have been effective for us because somebody screwed up here or there. Let's see how we can make things better, but taking the tool away, good luck finding a group of good folks that are going to go and kick that door in and be the first one through, knowing what's on the other side. That's what irritates me. It's not sensible. It's not sustainable. And it certainly isn't helpful. Okay, I'll be quiet now for a second.
No, I agree with that. 100% agree. Okay, T-Bob, you're up.
Oh, hey, I didn't even know I was up.
There you are. You're
How
up.
you doing, Officer Anderson?
I'm doing well.
But before I do, huh?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Oh, that's some good stuff, man. You should try this sometime. Hey, let me tell you. So what year did you get married?
Which time?
This last time.
Why is that important?
Well, I just want to know, were you married like all the way through 2019?
Yes.
Why, Bob? Why are you asking that?
How did well, because I want to know how his wife felt about that sexual allegation that was launched against him, even back in 2015.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
What's he talking about? Bob, what are you talking about?
There was no disciplinary action. He wasn't guilty of anything. I was just asking how his wife at the time felt about that, how that interacted with the relationship.
What wasn't married at the time, Bob? Thank you for clarifying, because I know what you're talking about. Wasn't married at the time, but that woman stood by me because she knew that it was false, that it wasn't true, and so that's who I'm married to now.
So you had some false allegations against you?
I did.
Wow.
And it was investigated more than once, 3 times to be exact. And I actually have a clearance letter from our licensing agency, who was the third entity to investigate it. And I'm good. I know me. People who know me know that it was ridiculous. It was absurd. And that's that.
That's got to be even more frustrating than the other things.
It wasn't pleasant. Let's just put it that way. It was not pleasant. And that's why I'm so in love with the woman who stuck by me. We were dating at the time, and she knew me well enough to know there was never a question in her mind, and there shouldn't have been a question in anybody's mind. But, some people are skeptical anyway, but not her. And so that's my honey doll.
The person that accused you, who was that?
I'm not supposed to talk about this a lot, but it was somebody that was working for me.
Wow. That's why you need that 3-point system. You need that 3-point. Were you using that 3-point system when you hired that person?
I was.
Really?
Yeah, I was. Nothing's 100% foolproof, but
well, I would think somebody that did a lot of community service wouldn't be someone to do false allegations.
People come to us in a variety of ways. And,
wow. Unbelievable.
We did our due diligence, but, life happens. And so it was not pleasant. It was not fun, but we made it through. And
wow.
We're all good.
Oh, terrible. Okay, Sharman Smith, you're on with the chief.
I'm curious about the false accusers. You've mentioned several different stories throughout this interview where there was false accusers who caused you and your police department all kinds of problems. How does the police handle the prosecution of false accusers?
Well, you know what? Great question, because in the instance of when my officer was shot, and we work very closely with the district attorney and the county attorneys. And our city sits in 3 different counties. So we have 3 different district attorneys to work with. But we've established great rapport and great relationships with them. And they do value our opinions on how vehemently we want them to bring forth a complaint. And that was the case in that instance. And so our opinion matters to them. And I appreciate that. And I respect that. But that's how we do it. We sit down and we talk about it, and we go, this one right here, we feel real strongly about. So move forward with that one, and ultimately it's their decision. But again, they do appreciate what our opinion is on it.
Right. The police are in a really complicated situation most of the time. You have people who come in and file police reports that may or may not be accurate. And you have to decide which ones that you choose to investigate and which ones you don't. What goes into the decision-making process on which ones you choose to investigate and which ones you do not?
For us, we investigate them all.
Everything, even rape accusations?
Absolutely. If you file,
is that just in St. Cloud, or is that all of Minneapolis and the Tri-Cities combined?
I can't speak for agencies that I don't run, so I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be evasive. But if you have a complaint against an officer that works for St. Cloud PD, if you file a complaint, it will be investigated, and it will be investigated thoroughly. And you're right, it does happen. Thank goodness for video now. I mean, I've had people come in and complain and say stuff like, well, one of your officers, kicked me in the head while I was handcuffed. And of course, the video doesn't show that. But we investigate that as much for the complainant as we do for the officer's reputation. And here's the other part. If those kinds of things are happening, I'm going to want to know about that so that I can address that and deal with that. So we don't take anybody's complaint lightly.
Right. I'm not a fan of the defund the police campaign, but I do support reforming the police campaign. I had a personal situation with Minneapolis Police Department where I brought somebody who was a sexual assault victim to them. She gave me a very compelling story that I fully believed, and I held her hand as she contacted the police and went through this whole process where the police initially told her that they weren't even going to investigate her claim, that they just pick and choose which ones they investigate and which ones they don't. And she had to jump through flaming hoops to even get an investigation. And then it turned out to be false accusations against a lot of different people. And no charges were ever brought against her. No prosecution was ever brought. And that makes it so difficult with relationships with the police, with other people. We have so much hostility and negativity in our communities right now. We can't trust each other. And we come to the police, we look for help, and we expect to get resolution, but so many times we don't get it. What advice do you have for these people who have these negative relationships with the police, but they're trying to move forward and build something where they believe they can trust each other?
Again, I can only speak for the agency I'm running. I'm not blind. I don't live with my head buried in the sand. I get it. I understand. It's going to sound corny as hell, but it's the truth. You got to establish that legitimacy and that trust before things are going poorly. One of the things I'm most proud of is I could go on and on all day about the dozens of community engagement initiatives that we have, and they are not in response to anything. It's a matter of course for us. And so we don't have that issue where I'm in command. And this is not about me patting myself on the back. It's about how we screen people. It's about what our mission is. It's about what our moral compass is based upon, which is our wheel of integrity. If you imagine a wheel with 5 spokes, each spoke represents a value. And for us, they are honesty, humility, respect, accountability, and transparency. And if any of those are missing, I tell my staff, when you're dealing with another person, a suspect, a victim, a coworker, a superior, somebody who works for you, if one of those things is missing, check yourself and start over. Those are things that have worked for me. Unfortunately, Ms. Smith, I can't answer. I don't know that there's a panacea, but I do know what works. And that is establishing trust and legitimacy before there is a crisis, so that when there is one, people will actually listen to you and work with you. And that's the other part. We have to work together. We can't solve anything by ourselves. The police.
No, absolutely. None of us. Right. None of us.
Sorry for that long-winded answer, but that's.
No, I appreciate the long-winded answer.
We love your answers. Okay. Kermit and Friends, how can I help you?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson, my question to you, sir. How many times have you smoked pot? Did you inhale, and did you enjoy it? Thank you.
I don't know who that was.
Wow. Like a lot of people, experimentally, back when I was in high school, but certainly not since then.
Yeah, I don't really like it. I don't even enjoy that. I'm a very paranoid person anyway.
Well, and I went to the military when I was 19 years old. Clearly there haven't been any opportunities for me to get my blaze on, whether I wanted to.
You're not missing anything. Trust me, you are not. You see what idiots. So. I mean, this guy was probably high right now. You see what these people are like. Yeah.
and that's fine. Guess what? Some of them are my clientele in my 26 years.
Yeah. Every time, like I hang out with someone high, or I run into someone high, I'm not jealous. I'm not,
should you be. Me neither.
I'm not jealous. It doesn't seem fun at all. They seem just like to get more dumb and more dumb every time. So to me,
maybe if they could see themselves, they might stop doing that. Maybe if they saw what we saw.
Yeah, no, when I see them, I don't want to be like that. I'm hoping it's not affecting me. I want to be smarter, if anything.
Right. But that's okay. I appreciate the whole Bill Clinton reference with his question as well. Did I inhale? Well, what the hell would you smoke something and inhale it? Then you're not smoking it.
Okay, here's a nicer guy. This guy's a doctor. Dr. Roy, you're on with the chief.
Hey, Chief, I'm so glad. I have so many comments, and then I have some questions. So my first comment is, you guys deal with conflict, and the basic element of conflict is two belief systems. And I feel, you in particular, more cops need to become social workers and psychologists in order to survive now. And so they can't handle things in an authoritarian system. They have to, de-escalate. They have to think like a social worker, where now, because of the elements of conflict today. Okay, that's one comment. The second comment, you dealt with white supremacy and the evolved. White supremacy has always been here. But one thing important, what happened is number 45 has legitimized it. When he was in office, he said basically that it's okay to do this. And that's why I think there's an uproar of this conflict, The third thing is that marijuana. So, everybody has rights. We have gun rights. We have this right. New Jersey has become now a marijuana state. And this is important. I believe in rights, but our country is too immature. And so we have guns and people are immature and they can't handle it. We have alcohol and people are immature and drink and drive and kill people and we're too immature. Now we have marijuana, which I'm okay with it, but it's too immature. They'll get it wrong. They'll start making brownies or something and then kids get it and then you hear it in the news. And so what I'm saying is that our country in the US, has these rights, but we can't handle it because of people, because of their immaturity. We did a symposium at our hospital and we had the DEA, we had, experts in drug, and they all believed that marijuana was bad. And the reason why is because a couple of things. Marijuana is a hallucinogen. And so it's scheduled hallucinogen. And so, down the line, in long-term use of marijuana, it will become an effect like schizophrenia. You'll have, auditory hallucinations. You'll start hearing things. This is long-term use, right? So these are just some statements, and that's why I agree with it, but I don't agree with it because our country can't handle it, just like guns. And so these questions I want to impose on you. So because of conflict, right? When you have someone come at you and attack you, with these police and you yourself, your entity, where you handle, it's like families are like its own culture. So every police department is its own culture, and you handle your department like your own culture, and then you have different cultures. So when someone comes at you and you have to de-escalate and some police, don't de-escalate, and then you see these shootings where they shoot to kill. Why can't they shoot to injure so that they're disabled and then you can de-escalate? I don't get that part. Like, shoot them in the leg so they're injured, but not kill them.
Nice,
and that's
long
what I don't
question.
get. Yeah.
Great long question. Go ahead.
So let me answer that last part for you first. There are a great number of things that happen to a person physiologically and psychologically when they are involved in a critical incident. Okay, so let's take that officer for example. We do not train folks to shoot to kill. We train folks to shoot if they have to eliminate whatever threat they've been confronted with. And so you lose your finite motor skills. And so it's difficult. It's not like TV. It's difficult to shoot the knife out of somebody's hand when you are immersed in that situation and you either someone else or you are about to be done great bodily harm or death. You just do not have the finite motor skills to aim at somebody's pinky finger or their ankle, which is why we shoot at the largest part of the target, which is center mass, which of course is where critical organs are. And so again, it's something that the general public doesn't know, and maybe that's our fault because we don't explain it well enough. But we don't shoot people to kill them. We shoot people to stop the threat. Look at the Cleveland officer when he shot the young girl just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
After the other girl with a knife.
Yeah.
What would you have him do? And somebody got after me about that, about my statements about that. But my response was, what if that was your child or somebody you cared about? And it's clear on the video that the other girl is going after her with a knife with bad intentions. And this other poor child had nowhere to go. She's pinned up against a car. So now, if that officer doesn't take the action he took and the other girl gets killed, he's going to be in trouble for that. So and my point is, you can't keep backing us into a corner that's convenient for, and I'm not accusing you of doing this, doctor, but the general public, they want to put us in whatever corner is conducive for their argument at any given moment. And to me, that's just not fair. Because if it were you on the business end of that knife, hell yeah, you would have been saying, shoot, do something. Don't let this person kill me. So I hope that's an answer to the question. And as far as the other part, we are all de facto psychologists and sociologists and family therapists. The reason why things go sideways is because we are not trained to do that. If I wanted to be a psychiatrist, I would have gone to medical school. So there are a whole bunch of other system failures that come into play before we come into contact with somebody, whether they're in mental health crisis or any other social pathologies that are befalling people every day. And so we have to fix those things too. It can't all be on the police because we're the only entity that does not have the luxury of not responding. Think about it. Everybody else you call, they can say, well, we're closed. It's after 5. Call us back tomorrow, make an appointment. We don't have that luxury. And I ask no quarter. I just want people to understand that, right? So when you call, we come.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can trust you to come. In fact, Andy, my fiance, Andy Dick here, he calls the police every night. Is that right, Andy?
Pretty much. I like the police. They're here to serve and to protect.
And we're people. Here's the news, you guys. I know, as do a whole bunch of others, that uniform is a symbol of a lot of things, right? It's a symbol of service. It's a symbol of sacrifice. But for a whole different group of people, it's a symbol of oppression and terrorism and tyranny. I get that. So I try and be mindful of all of those things in all decisions I make regarding service and protection. The protection part is a given, but we emphasize the service aspect in our community. And it is amazing how wonderfully the community embraces us.
Yeah.
Andy, you have a question for the chief?
Well, I need the police, and I used to be afraid of them because I've been to jail a few times, a handful of times, but now I call them just so I can get to know them. To be honest with you, I called them the other night because one of my roommates ate the lobster out of my lobster taco.
What, Andy? Why would you do that? That's not good, right, Chief?
No, that's not a good use of the resource there, because here's the question, Andy. What would you have us do about that?
I know, exactly. But I really just missed you guys. And but then the next time I called, I actually needed the police for something. And they're like, oh, it's just Andy. Don't even worry. Boy who cried wolf.
One too many times, but again, you call, we come.
Yeah.
And the goal is to make things better.
Yeah. And I know them all now. How come there's an echo?
So Andy, I want to tell the chief what happened to you yesterday. Andy was injured. Do you want to show the chief your injury that you got yesterday and see what he would do about that situation? So Andy was beat up yesterday, Chief. He was beat up and he broke his ankle. Andy, can you please show your ankle? Okay.
Ouch.
So that's Andy's ankle currently. He was beat up by somebody. Is that grounds for calling the police? Should he have called the police on that person?
100%. 100%. I mean, if not that, what? You have a right to move about without being assaulted.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, we were wrestling for fun. He just took it too harsh. It was too hard.
But weren't you upset? Didn't you tell him to stop, Andy? That looks like a very bad injury.
What is it? Yeah, it is bad. It's killing me. I never went to the hospital.
You might have a difficult time with that one if you guys were mutual combatants. I mean, I don't know. I don't live in LA or wherever you guys are, if I'm assuming incorrectly. But the laws are different everywhere. But if you were assaulted, I mean, if somebody beat you up or intended to cause you harm, that's a whole different story. And I don't mean to make light of that, but that's a whole different story than, you getting injured wrestling around with a friend and they took it too far. But I'd call anyway.
Yeah. It got worse over the last couple of days. I think he did it so that I wouldn't be able to go to Vegas because he wanted to go to Vegas without me.
Well, he could have just said that. I mean, it's a big place. You guys can both coexist in Vegas at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that. And then so Andy, he calls the police a lot. People knock down his door. He doesn't have a lock on his door, so people can just get right in. And I find that to be very dangerous. It's not very safe around here right now. For some reason, the crime has gone up, and especially I'm on the Citizen app, and the crime always seems to be circling around Andy's neighborhood. Right? Right, Andy?
It's true. Why is there such an echo?
I think crime is up everywhere, you guys, to be honest.
Crime is up.
Pretty much. Since last year.
I think crime has been up everywhere. Yeah. I think you just follow me so you see what's happening in my neighborhood and you come over here sometimes,
Yeah. No, I didn't notice how much crime was happening until I signed up for that app. And now anytime anything happens, I'm alerted to it. So Chief, why do you think it's gone up so much? Because it's really extreme here, where like every 2 seconds I'm getting a buzz about some kind of violence.
Know why. Can I answer? And
go ahead, Andy.
Mine's a guess, so I don't know, but I'm guessing it's because of all this crap happening with COVID and all this other stuff, the election and all this stuff. And so the police are a little more like, and all the other stuff with police shooting people, but like you said, you have to. But they're getting blamed and then this and that. So now they're very much more standoffish. Am I right? So now criminals jump in. That, you know, they see that, so they just get in there. They're eating and, you know, everything. Knives. There's a knife every day in my neighborhood.
I think there are a lot of contributors. I think all the angst from COVID and folks being cooped up. I think from all of the unrest from last year, still a lot of tension. And of course, the world keeps turning. So there have been other incidents that have happened in the last year, and they will continue to. And so I don't know if I can pinpoint one specific reason why, but I know that we've all seen an uptick in it. Well, and then throw in the politics and the police and all that madness. I can't pinpoint one thing. Oh, and then all of the other things that were already issues, all the other social pathologies that affect people on a daily basis. It's a recipe for what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, but don't you think it's all, you know?
Good boy. Good boy.
Okay. She's
All right.
like a dog. But don't you think it's because, so that's all reasons for these thieves and bandits, horrible evil people to rush in because the cops are a little more laid back. Like, what about this? What do I call you? The chief of police or officer? Or William?
Hey, William's fine. Blair's fine. That's what my mother named me, so it's all good.
Now, there's another thing that's been happening in LA, and there's just a very big upswing of homeless people living in tents and stuff. What's that about?
It's about all those other social pathologies and systems that have failed people. Again, man, if I had the answer for this stuff, I'd give it away. I wouldn't sell it. Again, like every other community, you know, we have those issues, but you know what we tried to do with St. Cloud, what we did do was we went to the district courts and we set up a program for folks who we call them NPA, right? No permanent address. And so how do you mail them a summons, or how do they know they've got a bench warrant if they don't have an address? And so we set up a special court for those folks, along with the judiciary and the court system and the county and the city attorneys, so that they don't miss their court dates because they don't have an address to get mailed their summons. And that's been working very well for us to keep people off that merry-go-round. And then on the other side of that, we've got some other outreach initiatives to help them. We've got what we call a community action team. We have actually seen a huge reduction in crime with respect to it being committed by folks who are homeless. And we've actually been able to reintegrate a lot of those people back into our community in permanent housing. We've gotten them to the appropriate service provider is what we've done. That community action team is made up of judges, of probation, of police officers, of mental health professionals, medical professionals. And we're, you know, most times homelessness is synonymous with people in a mental health crisis.
Right.
We're trying to address those things.
I think you just figured something out. That we're all kind of going, it makes me cry, actually. We're all kind of going through some kind of mental health right now. You know what I mean?
Hey, listen, I say so for cops, man. There's got to be something wrong with us. We're the only ones that run towards what everybody else is running from. So, not to make light of people in mental health crisis, but we're a little bit different.
Speaking of mental health crisis, I have a caller. Kermit and Friends, how can I help you?
Hi, Lisa. I have a question for the chief. It's Barry.
Hey, Barry.
Hi. So, Chief, what do you think about law enforcement volunteers that are non-sworn personnel who have mental health issues, that, such as myself? I was previously a law enforcement volunteer running a Citizens Court Council sponsored by the Coral Gables Police Department from 2014 to 2018. And law enforcement turning its back on their own and wrongfully arresting that individual just because they don't like him and because he was a Trump supporter, amongst certain other factors that they had no case on. And then they coerced him into pleading guilty in the misdemeanors in the end in the feds. I want to ask the chief what he thinks about that, how the feds are crooked and how they manipulate and they don't play by the rules, and they lie consistently. They dropped my charges and superseded me with 2 others and dropped those. And then my prosecutor wanted to drop all my charges, according to my criminal defense attorney. But then his head boss was, no, it'll make us look bad. He's been in for 15 months. We know he's a former police volunteer, but it'll make us look bad. He'll sue us. He'll get his $1,500 a day, whatever it is he spent behind bars. What do you think about that, Chief? About crooked cops, especially crooked feds? Because I saw a video on you, and you're a really nice guy, and you seem really genuine and nice, and you seem like a really good cop. And I wanted to ask your opinion on that situation, about the thin blue line turning its back on its own when he didn't commit the crime, but they forced him to coerce and then pleading guilty in the misdemeanors just to justify the time behind bars.
All right.
There's a lot going on there, and like I said earlier, I don't have enough information to comment intelligently on this particular situation. Here's what I will say: nobody likes a bad or corrupt or crooked cop more than a good one, because it makes things difficult for all of us. As far as the specifics or what has happened, I can't speak on that intelligently without knowing the full story. And I don't doubt your caller's veracity at all, but I just don't have enough information. So I can say, we're not in favor of corrupt or crooked police officers.
I mean, it's just such a small percentage. It seems like what you were saying before, most cops go into it for the right reasons. It's just a few bad people that are making everybody look bad. Yeah. And this guy, Barry, that called in, he's talking about himself. And I'm sorry. I think I'm on the cop's side.
Maybe I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, I think that's another reason I call them a lot, because, and they bring them over here. I know them now. And it's almost like I'm doing market research on which, because every once in a while, after about 20 or 30 different cops, there's a lot of cops. I know now. One of them is a little, you can tell something going on. You know what I'm saying?
If you live in LA, you got a huge police department. So if you can get to know a few of them, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he knows all of them.
Have people. So I did get a question over here, though.
Yeah.
Looking in the chat, it says, what kind of systems does your department have for helping officers with their stress? Love it. Love that question. We have an officer wellness program. They
come to my house to do tantric yoga.
Well, it'd be a long commute to get to your house from the middle of Minnesota. But we've got peer counselors. We've got a clinical director. So the officers don't have to deal with administration if they're not comfortable. They can go to their peer counselors. We've had at least 25 of our officers trained to be peer counselors. And we're using all kinds of other innovative things to make sure that these folks are okay, because we want them to be okay, mentally and physically and spiritually. So however we can facilitate that, that's what we do. So that's the answer to that question. We have a full officer wellness and peer support system.
Do you send them on retreats and, Buddhist kind of like go to an ashram and meditate for a weekend?
Yeah, no, that's very funny. Very funny. Like I could do that. No.
Oh, there's feedback. Okay, hold on one second. I'm trying to figure out where this feedback's coming from. So okay, let's take this one.
Well, before you take
this
the
one
call,
guy-
I see Byron is waiting, but I want to ask him one more thing. The chief, because somebody just commented that that on your right now, they said cops adore celebrities. That's not true. When they look at me, they look at, I'm going to get the big fish this time.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, when it's a bad cop. But that's why I think I've been calling them a lot, because I'm getting to know them. I'm getting to show them I'm not that person that everybody makes me out to be, you know?
What is that?
I'm not that person.
No, I know, but what do you think they're trying to make you out to be?
Well, you know, you told me this morning.
I do have a good story about Andy, but first let's just get to Byron's question. Byron, what is your question for the chief?
Answer the first step. Or you already answered my first question, but I was wondering if you went beyond that into their spiritual healing as well through Reiki or something like that. So even if you have a emotional issue that you might not be aware of, Reiki or energy healing can help bring it to the surface so they can address it, even if they can't put words to it.
I'm on.
That gets a little bit beyond my purview as a chief. Those are personal choices, and there are some things again that we certainly can do as an administration. But when you start getting into spirituality and what methods people use to heal themselves, that honestly, the honest answer is that's way beyond my scope and my capabilities. Imagine the problems you would have. We're dealing with union employees, and people have rights. As Dr. I can't remember his last name. I don't want to mess it up. People have rights, and we have to be very careful not to infringe upon those rights, but at the same time, make sure we keep good care of them. I think the closest thing we've been able to do is implement a yoga program, and it is voluntary.
Oh, that's nice.
We do have one, and so I don't know if we could go much beyond that. At least not right now. Maybe the pendulum will swing and things will change, but not right now.
So I want to thank you, Chief, for being a guest on this show. I know that you're going to Coach Love for some kind of question and answer thing. Is there anything that you want to tell people that are watching to inspire them? I mean, should they watch your TED Talk? How do they reach out to you? You're somebody that I think can't be reached out to, right?
No, that's not true. I appreciate the plug. Please watch my TED Talk, right? Chief Anderson's Kindness app. I just stood up a website that has some other interviews and some other things on there, and we will continue to build and put some more content on there. But listen, I'm not difficult to find. I'm still a city employee, and so my email is on the city website. My website is williamblairanderson.com. Simple enough, just my whole name. And William is spelled out, of course, not like I sign it here, W period. But anyway, please reach out. There's other questions on here. If people have them, if I can answer them. There's a question on here about whether I'm going to work with the Minneapolis Coalition. No, my responsibility is St. Cloud right now, and in that community, I don't run Minneapolis or their PD. Am I going to set up some programs to help other PDs? With another question, and real quickly, I've traveled all over the nation to try and do just that. One last thing, please look up our Community Outpost initiative, or our Cop House. And it was put together through the Greater St. Cloud Public Safety Foundation. It is another phenomenal tool that we use to engage our community, everything from youth engagement to community engagement, English as a second language courses, mentoring, tutoring, homework help for kids, sports, you name it. This is our effort. This is what we're trying to do. And I can tell you that it is working. Last story, and then I'll shut up, I promise.
Wait, before you go into that story, one of my friends has a very important question for you. One of the guys that sometimes lives here.
Hey, how's it going?
Introduce yourself.
Going well.
Jared Isaacson. They call me HUD. Have you ever caught somebody with drugs and just decided to let them go because they seemed like a nice guy or something?
They did it with me. They did it with me.
No. I mean, again.
Wait, that was a no, officer.
It depends on what it is and how much. I'm going to take somebody to jail because I find a roach in their ashtray in the car. No. Not for that, especially if they weren't driving. Now, if they're driving, another story. So it depends is the best answer I can give you. But last quick story. We all saw the 3rd precinct in Minneapolis being burned to the ground, right? During the unrest, during the riots.
Yeah.
I pulled into the St. Cloud PD a day or two after that, and there were 2 fine citizens, 2 women planting flowers around the perimeter of the police department in St. Cloud. And they've done it all summer. We have the most beautiful flower beds in the city, and all the flowers were donated. This is how our community responds to us. It seems like a small thing, but while people are trying to destroy police departments and set fire to them literally and figuratively, our citizens are trying to beautify ours just to show us how much they appreciate how we do what we do. So I make it a point to tell my folks all the time, it's important how you do what you do. So.
How nice is that? That is beautiful. Thank
great.
you so much,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Chief, and please let the policing community know that Andy Dick is actually a very nice person. Just let all your officers, just tell them that. Tell them that you met him and just to let him go.
I believe that, and I'm old enough to recognize them too. So I didn't want to be all struck about it, but I know.
Well, you've been great. Thank you so much. Everybody reach out to Chief Anderson here. He's a great guy. And I'd like to say, did you have fun on the show? Did you enjoy it at all?
Absolutely. Fantastic. I love the interaction. I even some of the goofy questions, but wherever there are people, there's going to be a diversity of thought, and that's cool.
There's always some weirdos, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're all weird. Think about it. We're all weird.
Yeah.
Tell my kids that when they would get depressed. Oh, Dad, so call me weird. I'm like, son, we're all weird. That's the beauty of all of us. Everybody's weird.
That's pretty true. Well, I just really appreciate you. God bless you. And thank you so much. What a doll. What a doll. What a doll. What a doll.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Oh, what a great guy. Okay, Lori. What did you think of the Chief?
I thought that was a very interesting conversation that's been going on with the back and forth, some of the silly stuff. Obviously he can't speak for things out of his jurisdiction unless he knows a lot about it. Yeah. I think he can have an opinion based on what he knows, but of course he doesn't feel comfortable talking about it. Nobody should make him. I'm a supporter of Black Lives Matter, but I'm not a supporter of defunding the police. I support reforming the police. I think there's a lot that could be done, especially with the Minneapolis Police Department. I don't think it ends at the conviction of Derek Chauvin. I think that in itself sparks more reform that could happen. I think that police need to be held accountable when they are acting out of pocket, when they're out of place. And that these bad eggs need to be found and eliminated from the departments, and that they need to be retrained. The whole departments need to be retrained. That's how I feel about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, this guy, Chief Anderson, he is just above and beyond. That's why he's the chief of police. He is such a good person. I mean, he's not the typical Kermitarian guest here. He really isn't. But I really enjoyed him. Coach Love, Any thoughts on, the interview? Any thoughts? You're the booker. What do you think?
I love the interview. As a matter of fact, what I was doing is popping with the chief, to tell him to log on so he can get his Q&A on. I think that the chief is such a fine and upstanding guy that it's hard for him to talk about cops that aren't of his caliber.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just, he wouldn't hire people like that. He has good cops working with him. So I think he gets upset probably when people bring that up. So I tried not to bring it up too much because he has such positivity to him. And I feel like instead of concentrating on the negative things, that we should, concentrate on the positive things with him. And God, he's just such an angel.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's amazing. One thing that I'm going to ask him about a little bit later is his, 3-point plan. And if I remember everything right, he asked them about their volunteer work. And I think that is the very best question to ask someone when you're talking about being a police officer, because if you don't have like that thought to volunteer, to give back to the community, how are you going to build that into someone, And that's one of the questions that he asks his his citizens or his interviewees before he decides to hire them. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, because he does not hire anyone unless they have volunteers. Okay, so that is something that I really admire. And he's just such an amazing I would say he's better than other people. I mean, I'm not going to mention who, but Andy, did you enjoy the party last night?
I did. That was a really, really, really nice time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was invited to David Amron's party. At first, I did not get a +1, and it was a limited guest list because of COVID, and because it was at the London hotel. So if you guys don't remember who David Amron is, I'm going to play you this short clip of him on Kermit and Friends. It's funny you talk about looks and how important they are, right? So Andy, when I see his face, I cannot help but smile. His face makes me so happy and gives me so much joy. I would not change his face. But what was that?
I love you so much. I can't stand it.
Do you guys remember that guy, Dr. David Amron? So Andy had a broken ankle and he still went to the party. How nice is that? But it actually took a village. Like Chief Anderson says, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to get Andy to go to a party. So I actually paid $60 to Eric. Is Eric there?
Yeah.
So Eric is working for me now. Eric is helping me get Andy places. Okay, so Eric, what do you want to call yourself?
My name's Eric.
No, but as far as what your role is.
I'm Eric, Andy's a really good friend, and I like to make art, and Andy appreciates my art, so we have a good bond. My name's Eric. Hi.
Eric, you're Kermitarian of the Week. Okay. Because you got Andy to the party last night.
Is off so they can see your eyes.
Okay. So this guy, Eric, I could not get Andy to the party. I sent multiple Ubers, multiple lifts. He did not get in any of them. And then I hired Eric to get Andy into the Uber, and he successfully came to the party. So thank you, Eric. Cheers. Kermitarian of the Week. Okay. It is not easy to get Andy to go anywhere. So let's see. Okay. So what do we have now? Okay. So, and then I wanted to ask everybody how their Memorial Day was, because Andy had a very interesting Memorial Day. I didn't do too much. I had a couple meetings actually I took that day. But Andy, what did you do on Memorial Day?
I don't remember what I ate for breakfast.
Chamberlain.
Oh, the Chamberlain? And what happened?
Rooftop pool, super sweet pool. Art was made, parties with pro basketball players, only famous girls. Yeah, we party at the Chamber, and there was a rooftop party as well for a pro basketball player. And co-made to make an amazing, epic party of super proportions with like OnlyFans famous girls and pro basketball players and rappers and just producers. And basically, they had a bar at the pool, and everyone was just paying for everything, and it was just really amazing. And the carpets in there were beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful hotels I've ever stayed in. The Chamberlain, if you guys get a chance to stay there, it's really nice.
So that's what Andy was doing.
Yes.
And I actually have a video, a very fun video of Andy explaining what he did on Memorial Day. Ready for that video, Andy?
Yeah.
It's called Andy Dick Memorial Day. Let me get it. 1 second.
What's it gonna be? Roll the clip.
Real cute. They were both running around fucking sisters, butt naked.
Around you?
They didn't look. It doesn't matter. They could get picketed.
Right. No, I just thought they looked alike.
I didn't think so.
Oh yeah, the one was like, I'm not German or Russian. I'm from Indiana, just like my sister. I am from Indiana, just like my sister.
Actually, sounds like you're from another country. Oh no, I am not from another country. Indiana.
So they were naked in Andy's room?
What?
They were naked in your room, Andy?
Not my room. We were in the living room. And I didn't say get naked. They're just running around like, what the fuck are they doing? I don't mind. I was looking at them though. You can't help it when they're sticking their butts right in your face, working. We didn't need to turn on the TV.
Yeah, that's literally
Oh my god.
It was fun. I'm not gonna lie.
It was a Doritos commercial. It was lit.
They were completely naked, no underwear?
Yes, ma'am.
No underwear. Their little pussy lips flapping around.
Their beans were bouncing.
See?
That,
Look at
oh my god!
Send that to me.
You gotta come hang out sometime. You'll love it.
I'm telling you, they're hot as fuck.
My face.
Send that to me. We've just been laughing all week.
The next day, some guy's like, hey, you need some change.
Oh my god.
I want to see Andy. Text that to me. I want to see what Andy's doing in that.
I wasn't
Mickey.
waiting for it to be. Show her any picture of me.
Show me Andy in that.
Oh.
Do you think this is what a fiance should be doing?
I got a nice ass. Like, it's a good thing.
I'm not in it. I didn't do anything.
So when you have butts in your face, you don't do anything with them?
Nope.
Nothing? You don't touch the butts?
No. I promise.
You feel like he's weirded out. He's honestly.
Wait, is that Eric talking?
No.
Who's talking? Mickey, does Andy touch butts and stuff?
She's asking her question.
Does Andy touch the butts and everything? No?
He looks at him.
Yeah, I do look at him, but it's disgusting. I don't like when girls are so boorish. Big turn on. Big turn. Yeah, they're doing the act. It's like, what? It's fucking.
It's a weird thing. All doing that.
Get a job at a strip club.
It's a weird thing.
It really is. Well, they think guys like it. Oh, so it was laughable.
All right, I'm gonna look at these pictures. I'll decide.
Okay, well, call me back after. Okay, I want to go and just.
What do you guys think of that?
Cheers to that. That was good.
You guys had a great time. All right, so let's see. Okay, so that chief, what'd you guys think? He's so amazing, right?
I love him.
I love him. He's one of the good ones. It made me feel so happy that there's actually someone that nice out there.
Safe. Makes me feel safe.
It makes me feel safe too.
I wish I could live with him.
Yeah, you should move there. St. Cloud, Minnesota. All right, so we have a new person here that I don't really know, this Byron guy. Byron, have I ever met you before?
No, we haven't met yet. Though I have watched a few. I have watched a few episodes already.
Okay, how'd you find us?
Charmin introduced me to the podcast.
The toilet
and-
paper?
No,
Charmin
Charmin.
Smith, the woman that ran for president. She wrote the books. You know her.
Yeah, exactly. I've also did a house cleaning for her a few years ago.
With toilet paper?
Ultra.
Wait, you do house cleaning for Charmin?
Well, a house cleansing. I removed entities from her home. Well, her previous home. In other words, I'm a paranormal investigator.
What?
That's
You're
That's
you're
true.
a paranormal investigator?
And also a Reiki healer, which I focus more on that, but I've been doing paranormal investigations for approximately 15 years as well.
Don't you do? Isn't it called Reiki?
Reiki.
I do Reiki, yes. I teach it as
Now,
well
have you ever
for
done
25
Reiki?
years.
Have you ever done Reiki on a ghost?
They don't usually need Reiki, but I've had them help me give Reiki to people who did need it.
So what kind of paranormal activity was going on in Charmin's house?
Well, it was her previous house, and it was a lot of ancient. Yeah, I just wanted to make.
Haunted.
Yeah, it was haunted.
Yeah, the mansion was haunted. It was built in the late 1800s and was part of the Underground Railroad. The doctor that lived there in the 50s was actually lost his medical license in Ohio. The state of Ohio took it away from him because he was performing illegal abortions in the basement. The city turned a blind eye to his activity because they believed that he was providing a valuable service to the community. But the mansion that I owned was entertaining, to say the least. Tunnels underneath it, connecting it to other houses. It just came with a great story, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but my children did not. My spouse did not. So I found several different spiritual people who were convinced they could clean the ghosts out of the house. And Byron was one of the people that I found along the process. And he actually, I felt, was the best of all the people that I met.
Did you have to?
It was a rough stories.
Did you have to? Did you have to clean the ghosts of the dead fetuses?
Not necessarily the fetuses. Well, they didn't appear as fetuses at the time. They appeared as small children. I also had a lot of the mothers who were waiting, uncertainty, all the stress and everything that they felt at the moment when they were waiting in the waiting room that was in the basement was all lingering, super thick. So thick you could cut. You need a knife to cut it.
I called
It
the
was
basement
very
the dungeon.
overwhelming just to sort through it, and I did it from a distance. I'm here in the Netherlands.
What? You didn't even go to her house?
I had people come through the house and still had issues.
I do a lot of astral projection as well. I don't know if you've seen the series The Dead Files, where you had Amy walk through the homes. I don't need to go to the physical location. I use photos to almost like a window to step, or a doorway to step into the spirit world, to go into that room, pick up the energy, and see what's going on. And once I get the story of what's going on, I help the entities and the ghosts pass on, so that they can continue on into the heaven or hell or the afterlife, however you want to call it. Her case was one of the most interesting cases that I've done over the years. And shortly, because I'm now going through a breakup and about to move back to Canada, I am going to be joining the
Single Club
paranormal investigation team where I've worked with for years already. Yeah, go ahead.
Where you date with a ghost. You're going to date a ghost.
Friend zone.
Ghosts are us. Have you ever been on dateaghost.com?
I have never dated a ghost.
Look into it.
Well, who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters.
All right, you guys. I have to actually go because my cleaning lady is here.
Jesus.
But
The Ghostbusters are there?
What was that?
The Ghostbusters are there?
The Ghostbusters are here. That's why I'm leaving. I have to go. But I appreciate everyone like Byron and Eric. And what's that? Oh, my God. That's Andy's foot. Oh, somebody's calling it. Okay. Kermit and Friends, how can I help you?
Ooh, this is Andy's Gay Demons. Oh, stay away, Byron. Ooh.
All right. That was Andy's Gay Demons calling in. All right, guys, I really got to go. But Byron and Charmin and Roy and T-Bob and Andy and Lori and everybody here, Man Cave. Wait, actually, does he have a song? Do you have a song, Man Cave Live?
Well, if you're in a hurry, I'll just let it go. You go ahead. And
No. Do your song. Do your song. That's perfect.
I was just going to try to do an old Sonny Curtis.
That's
you do it
perfect. That's perfect. You can do that. But before you do that, before you do that, I just want to say to everybody, thank you so much for joining us today to see Chief William Blair Anderson. Follow him, find him, bother him. He wants to be bothered. I don't know why. He's a great guy. I really appreciate him being on the show today. I appreciate everyone, Sigmund and Lori and everyone that's involved here. A show like this for me is really tough because, it's a very accomplished, amazing, brilliant person. And that gives me a lot of anxiety. But I just really was happy to have him here and just a huge blessing. So I want to thank everyone for, watching Kermit and Friends, being on Kermit and Friends, writing to me about Kermit and Friends. I want you here every week. I want you to be a part of it. Be in our Discord, tweet us, contact the other characters from here. We love hearing from all of you. So thank you for joining us on Kermit and Friends, and we'll see you next week. Please enjoy Johnny B.
I'm breaking rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I needed money cause I had none. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. Amen, gay fans. I left my baby so bad. Yes, my race won. She's the best girl that I ever had. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
You're back on.
Hey, Andy. How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you.
Robbing people with a 6-gun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I miss my baby in the good fun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I left my baby and I feel so bad. I guess my race won. Oh, she's the best girl that I ever had. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.